The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, has handed in his letter of resignation to the Prime Minister. That letter coming into us here at Sky News. The Health Secretary, within the last 60 seconds, putting it out on social media. Our political editor, Beth Rigby, is here. The letter of resignation we've been anticipating for the last 48 hours, really, Beth, has just landed.
Yeah, news just as we came on air. Wes Streeting has resigned as the Health Secretary. He has put out at 1 o'clock a letter on his X account, a 2-page letter outlining that he is standing down from government. He has said in this letter, having lost confidence in your leadership, I have concluded it would be dishonourable and unprincipled to remain in post. He says, where we need vision, we have a vacuum. Where we need direction, we have drift. So Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, has resigned from Keir Starmer's cabinet, just coming out in the last moments. I haven't actually been able to read the letter in full yet. It literally came as we were on air.
Beth, you scan your eyes over it. I'm just going to read a couple of the paragraphs towards the end. He says, as a member of your government, I know better than most that governing is hard. It should be, because it matters. There are enormous challenges facing this country. For the first time in our history, the next generation faces a worse inheritance than the last.
He also says leaders take responsibility, but too often that has meant people falling on their swords. That is clearly quite an open criticism of Keir Starmer, who has said he is taking responsibility for election losses, for mistakes over the appointment of Peter Mandelson, but has remained in post when so many others have left, be that his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, his Director of Communications, Tim Allen, and, of course, the head of the Foreign Office having to quit. He says at the end of the letter, it is now clear that you will not lead the Labour Party into the next general election and that Labour MPs and Labour unions want the debate about what comes next to be a battle of ideas, not personalities or petty factionalism. It needs to be broad. It needs the best possible field of candidates. I support that approach and I hope you facilitate this. Now, that's interesting because what has been going on all morning is we have been waiting for Wes Streeting to move. We have been waiting, essentially, for Wes Streeting's resignation. It became very clear to me last night that whether or not Wes Streeting had the numbers to challenge the Prime Minister, trigger a leadership battle, he'd need 81 backers to do so, that given what had happened yesterday, the past 48 hours, it was unsustainable for him to remain in Keir Starmer's cabinet.
So would he be sacked or would he resign?
Well, but equally, the Prime Minister took a decision not to sack Wes Streeting. He said that yesterday. He had full confidence in him. He said it today at lunchtime, his spokesperson, rather. And why were they doing that? I think that they did not want to give any fuel to the flames and to the anger. And so he didn't want to be provocative in any way. And so he was trying to take a carry-on as usual approach and not create further reasons for people to rebel against him. What's interesting about this, though, is that what Wes Streeting is not saying in this letter is that I have the numbers to trigger a leadership ballot. He's resigned from government. There has been a very live conversation in Westminster over the past 24 hours as to whether or not Wes Streeting has the numbers to trigger a leadership ballot. Now, his allies are clear that he does, that he could trigger this ballot. Others think that he doesn't. I've seen a couple of different MPs. This morning I was around the House of Commons because the Prime Minister was in the House of Commons meeting with ministers and MPs today, trying to convince them to stick with him. And what I was told was that some people perhaps were wobbling, were people deciding that they didn't want to try to trigger a race now. I think what's really significant about what Wes Streeting has said in this letter about what comes next is a battle of ideas, not personalities or petty factionalism. It needs to be broad. It needs to be the best possible field of candidates. What has been going on in the Labour Party is that there are a number of MPs that would like Andy Burnham the Greater Manchester Mayor to be able to run in this race. And if a race is triggered now, there are questions about whether Andy Burnham could step forward, because obviously he would have to win a seat in Parliament and then come and participate in a leadership election.
And that takes time.
And it takes time. And if a leadership election was triggered now, the nominations open and they could close, i.e. getting the numbers required before Andy Burnham is back in Parliament. That would shut him out of the race. And some of his supporters have been telling me, even as late as this morning, that it would not resolve the issue of leadership for good. If you lock out someone that potentially is, to be blatant about it, he is the front runner, that it would, in the end, mean that you could replace Keir Starmer, but you would still have leadership questions. And it seems to me, and I don't know because I haven't had any background briefing as to anything else beyond the letter from any of Wes's allies, but it seems to me that Wes Streeting is kind of keeping his options open. It's clear you will not lead the Labour Party into the next general election, he tells the Prime Minister, and that Labour MPs and Labour unions want the debate about what comes next to be a battle of ideas, not personalities. It needs to be broad. It needs to be the best possible field of candidates. I support that approach. Now, reading that for me, that suggests to me that perhaps he is not about to trigger a leadership race. Perhaps he doesn't want to, or he doesn't have the numbers. I really don't know that at the moment. As I said, there's been suggestions that people think he does not have the numbers.
But could he have done anything else other than do this, given the position that he got himself into?
I personally feel that over the past 24 hours, Wes Streeting could not have, in good conscience, stayed on as Health Secretary, and I also think it would have looked poor on him to do so, not least because some of the ministerial resignations that happened on Tuesday, they were some of his closest allies, and it was people that wanted to trigger that race that wanted to do so. But one of his allies I spoke to earlier today was quite frustrated because they said to me, to quote this person, MPs are looking at where the wind is blowing. They're looking at which way the wind is blowing. But in this person's view, they said to me, Labour MPs are the wind. They can determine whether to trigger this race. So, I mean, look, this is Wes Streeting resigning. Clear the Prime Minister will not lead Labour into the next election. The unions yesterday also made that point. And this is just piling more and more pressure on the Prime Minister to at very least set out a timetable for his departure from government.
Yeah, the big question's still not answered. Who will come forward to challenge him as leader? Wes Streeting, as you said, hasn't made that move yet, but this resignation potentially paving the way for that. And we did hear from Angela Rayner earlier today, cleared by HMRC. She's repaid the tax that she owed on a property. That scandal has now gone away. And she's given interviews today essentially saying that, you know, I'm a team player. However, if there were to be a leadership contest, don't rule me out. So again, there are other characters to watch, given this move that Wes Streeting has made. So how do you think this is going to unfold now?
I think there's a number of things here. Angela Rayner, who you can see on the screen, she was under investigation by HMRC over whether or not she'd underpaid tax and whether she was culpable for that, in that she had intentionally mispaid tax. Now, there was an investigation by HMRC. If she had been found to have intentionally done it, she would have been fined. In the end, they said, you have mispaid your stamp duty. This was on a second home she bought. She thought it was a primary residence because she put the portion of her family home into trust for her disabled son. That was not correct. She did not get the correct advice. Now, this morning, her team revealed she did a couple of different interviews, one on ITV and one with The Guardian, saying that she had underpaid her tax, but that she hadn't deliberately sought to avoid tax. So she was effectively exonerated. She did repay the underpaid stamp duty, so she paid that money, but crucially, she was not fined by HMRC, and she said, you know, it clipped my wings. She feels exonerated, and really it's left a clean slate for Angela Rayner to stand if she chooses to. Now, as I understand it, when I speak to people around Angela Rayner, the position is that, as I understand it, that Angela Rayner, you know, would, if necessary, put her name forward. What does that mean? I mean, she is on the soft left of the party, as is Andy Burnham, as is Ed Miliband, someone also being talked about as a possible leadership contender. And I think what Angela Rayner is saying there in terms of via her proxies is that that she doesn't rule out standing, because the soft left are very clear that if a leadership race was triggered now by Wes Streeting, they would not let Wes Streeting have a run of that. And the reason is because Wes Streeting is on the progressive wing of the Labour Party. That's more to the centre of the Labour Party. And politically and ideologically, he's not where a lot of the party is, and he's certainly not where the members are. So this really now put in the pressure on the Prime Minister, and there's questions about whether other cabinet ministers go into number 10 and ask the Prime Minister to set out a timetable. We know that Ed Miliband has done that. We know that Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, has quietly done that. We know that Yvette Cooper went in, and John Healey, to have a conversation with the Prime Minister privately. Wes Streeting, presumably, and I'm guessing this, I don't know, but maybe he did tell the Prime Minister of his intention to resign in that very short meeting they had yesterday. It was awkward for Wes Streeting's team, because the Health Secretary's team had made it clear that he was not going to say anything to try to disrupt the King's speech. And then, of course, some of his allies, whilst being called by various journalists, including myself, sort of confirmed that the plan was for Wes Streeting to resign today. Wes Streeting's actual core team have kept completely silent on all of that until this letter dropped at 1 p.m.